so welcome back to part 2 of the 5 videos. So this video is foundation, base, powders, contour, highlight, all of that. Everything you need to know, how to do it, and we're just gonna do it. So thank you guys so much for coming back. So I'm just gonna get straight into it. So first, what I am going to do is I'm going to put on a little bit of primer. I said this in a previous video, but what I like to do with primer is I like to put it on after I do my brows, because if you didn't watch the brow video, it's on my channel. It's just the most recent video that I uploaded. What the deal is with the brows, you use a lot of makeup remover wipes. So if you put on the concealer, the primer first, you're basically just wiping it all off when you're wiping away the glue. So I like to put on the primer second. So in terms of what primer I'm using, I got 2 products from these people, these 2 really lovely girls who sent me some really nice stuff, and I'm really in love with it. It is Flores Boticario. I'm sorry if I'm not pronouncing that right, I'm really sorry. But it is really lovely. So they sent me some beauty primer, which I really love, and they also sent me some sort of like cleansing mist stuff that I'll use later on. But I would not, you guys can guarantee that I will not be talking about anything on here if I really didn't like it. I really do like this stuff. It's really nice. Basically this primer, what I found with most primers is it basically just puts like a mask on your face, which is what it's supposed to do, but it can also really dry your face. So this one, just taking a little bit, this one puts the mask on and fills in all your pores like what primer is meant to, but it's also really moisturizing. So it kind of helps with putting on the foundation because it sort of just glides on, and it sort of brings back a little bit of zhuzh into your face. That is really important, especially when you're having so much makeup on for such a long amount of time. So yeah, this is the primer that I've been using. I'm really loving it. It's really good. I'll put a link down below to their website. Just like really good quality stuff that's really good for your skin, and it's just really nicely made, and it's all smells really nice, and it's just like nice stuff. I really do like it. So that is what I've been using, but as an alternative, what you can use, and what I have used in the past, is this. Now this is really cheap. This is like $6. This is the Nivea Men Sensitive Post Balm Shave. Super cheap. It's not actually a primer, but I went to Summer the other day, and they're actually selling it as primer now because people started using it as primer. So they're actually selling it as primer. But like the main ingredient is in it. I don't actually know what it is, but it's like the main ingredient in most primers, so it works pretty much the same. Super cheap, super easy to get, so that's a really good alternative. But if you're willing to spend a bit of money, and really like, you know, like that really nice stuff, I would really recommend it. I'll put all the links down below. Okay, so once we're all primed and ready, I'm going to go straight in with a bit of foundation. So this is the TV paint stick, Kryolan TV paint stick in 0B. So I recently just got a new colour because my other colour was just not right. Just like something was a little bit off. So I got this colour. Now I've gotten so many questions on the TV paint stick. Specifically how to find, how to like colour match to your skin tone. If you can't physically actually go into the store. Now, that's going to be a little bit hard. So I'll show you. Basically, this was my other colour that I was using in previous videos that wasn't right, and I just recently got this colour that is a lot better. So you can see how close they are in colour, but this one, it makes the biggest difference, and this one was just like a tiny bit off. So unless you physically go into the Kryolan store and colour match your skin tone, I'm going to only just assume that it's going to be very difficult to find your exact skin tone if you're just looking at it on the computer, because you can see how similar these 2 colours are. But there are a few alternatives to the Kryolan paint stick. I haven't tried any because this was the first foundation I tried, and I fell in love, and I was never going to change it. But I've heard that the Makeup Forever HD foundation sticks are quite similar. They're also very full coverage. and I'm assuming that there's more chance that you'll have a Sephora in your area as opposed to a Kryolan store. So yeah, they sell them at Sephora, so you can probably, it's probably a little bit easy to go there. And also the MAC Full Coverage Foundation. It's not in a stick form, but if you just do it with a sponge and you go over your eyebrows with a sponge and that, it works quite similar. And again, there might be more of a chance that there's a MAC store in your area as opposed to a Kryolan store. But the only reason I would get those two over the Kryolan is if you physically can't get this. This is number one. This is it. This is the best for drag makeup, in my opinion. Now I've got a question here. Have quite a few questions I'll probably be answering through this video about the foundation. This one is from let's start that again. Lammy Kins. Hey girl. It says, best foundation on a budget, something full coverage for drag, but cheap enough to not cry while purchasing it. Okay. Well, this one, these really aren't that expensive. Like, they're so worth it. This one is $45 here in Australia. But yeah, I think it's, you know, basically the same. And I could not recommend it enough. I had my very first one for maybe, it was literally a year. It was like, I had it for a whole year. I used it for a whole entire year. And I got like, it was just $45 for a year. It was so worth it. I couldn't recommend it enough. You might cry over buying it, but you'll probably get over it once you realize how worth it is. And also, the other two alternatives that I just mentioned are quite a bit more expensive. I really don't think that you can skimp out on your foundation, because it is what's going to really have, it's the foundation to your makeup. So if your foundation is solid, the rest of it will just come and be solid. So if you really want to make it all look flawless, spend a tiny bit of money and like get the foundation. So this one is another interesting one. This one is from Discord Annabelle. How do you put on drag makeup without looking cakey and gross? So I think with drag makeup, no matter what, it's going to look cakey. It's just a matter of not putting on too much in places that you don't need a whole lot. If you ever like see drag makeup up close, you'll be like, ooh, that's like, you can tell it's a lot of makeup, because it is a lot of makeup. But yeah, so, you know, not putting on, what I like to do is I don't like to put on the foundation and then put on another full coverage powder, because it's just not necessary, because it's so full coverage already. So try and avoid unnecessary products in places that aren't necessary. That's my only advice. So this one, I have another question here. This one is from Witch.doll. She says dark, deep under eye help. So, I don't do much of that because mine are quite dark, but I don't know. I usually prefer concealer. But like, if you watched my previous video on how to cover the eyebrows, I mentioned this. This is like color corrector. This will cancel out the dark circles, and then once you put the foundation over it, it'll make it all one skin tone. So basically what you can do with this is the LA Pro Girl Concealer in Orange Corrector. If you just put a tiny bit under your eyes, sort of just blend it out a bit with a sponge, set it, and then go over it with the paint stick, you'll see that it helps quite a bit. You can also use orange eyeshadow, anything orange that will cancel out the dark shades. So yeah, that's my advice. I don't do that, but that's how you can achieve that. So I'm gonna put on the foundation. So let's do this. So basically, I put it everywhere. I like to start down below first, forehead, and then lastly I like to go over my eyebrows, because I like to sort of warm up the paint stick before I go over my eyebrows, just to make sure it doesn't rip off anything and it's not, you know, a big problem. Okay. Ooh, hey. You don't remember to go down the neck, anything like that. So next, we're just gonna blend it. So this is just a, you know, cheap beauty blender and just blend it all out, really. That's pretty straightforward. Also, I've mentioned this before in a video, but what I like to do is I like to take my beauty blender and a makeup remover wipe and just like dab, just to make it a tiny bit damp, just so it'll help blend everything a little bit better, as opposed to like actually physically putting it under water, because it can sometimes get a little bit too wet, and then it's just a little bit difficult. Okay, so next we are going to do concealer. Very important step. And this will also help with the dark under eye circles, obviously. This is how I kind of get rid of them. This is the Kryolan Concealer Circle. This is really good. I really do like this stuff. It's just this really, it's the lightest shade up the top here. And I just use a foundation brush. I'm sort of running out, but that's okay. Foundation brush, and I just dab it along the bottom here and bring it all the way up. Okay, and I like to bring it fairly, like, quite far down, all around here. And I also really like to bring it up the sides of my nose here, because that's just the beginning of contouring the nose. Just bring it all the way up there. It'll just help later on. Okay. Chin. I like to do here. A little bit. And then forehead. Okay. Then we blend. Ooh, okay. So now that that's done, we're going to move on to contour. So we're going to do cheeks. I like to take my contour from the top of my cheek, my ear here, and sort of like bring it down to the tip of my lip. Okay. And this is the Maybeline Fit Me foundation in Toffee 330. And then we're going to do around here, because I have a big ass forehead. No, just pile it on, really. Okay. Now I have another question here. This one is from Marnie Joseph. He asks, where and how do you contour your jawline? Because I don't really have a defined chin or jaw area, and it always just looks like brown on my jaw instead. So, this one could be a bit of a hard one. I know a lot of queens like, oh, who does it? Ginger Minge does it. Delta Work does it, where they will just literally draw a line where they want their jaw to be, and then they'll just blend it down from there and just keep that harsh line there. And it always gives a really good illusion. So my advice would be to just look yourself straight in the camera and just sort of like feel where you think it would look in proportion to your cheekbones, proportion to your mouth, into proportion to your ears, just where it kind of looks right. I don't really have a whole lot of advice on that, because I haven't done a whole lot of stuff dealing with that. But yeah, look at queens like Delta Work and Ginger Minge who don't have that defined jawline, but they just like draw it on. It always looks really good, and it's always a good illusion. So I hope that helps, I'm sorry. So next we're going to take our beauty blender. And we're just going to blend, blend, blend. Okay, so when it comes to the cheekbones, there are two ways that you can blend out your cheekbone contour. One way, you can blend the contour up and leave this harsh line on the bottom. If you do that, it will give the illusion of really big, beautiful, chunky cheeks. And another way you can do it is if you blend the contour down and leave this harsh line on the top. That way, if you blend it that way, it will look like you have really sunken in cheeks and you'll look really skinny and very like 90s supermodel. So those are just two ways, but I usually like to blend it up because, you know, you just gotta look a little more plump, and I think it's more like drag queen that way. So that's two ways. And also, when drawing on your jawline, be very aware of candy hoe. You don't want to look like you have a beard. So just be aware of the distance between your jawline and your cheekbone, like I said. Because if this were to come up any higher, it would look like a beard because you're supposed to have a little bit of distance between the two. So always make sure you've got like a white line in between. Okay, so that's like the face area done. Now I'm going to move on to nose, which is both my favourite and my least favourite part because it's so hard, but I'm going to show you guys how to do it. So what I do is I take my contour colour and this little concealer brush. I like to take a little brush so you can really get like just like the detail in. And the first step I take is I draw the two lines down the middle. So I go very, very thin. From the get-go. Okay? Don't really know if you can see that very well. But obviously these two lines are going to determine the shape of your nose. So if you do it, you can do it thin and then it can come out and then it can go thin again, or it can go from thick to thin. You can just, it's all dependent on these two lines. So whatever shape you want, it's all dependent on these two lines. And also where you finish your nose. So when I'm just doing like a look that isn't replicating another person's look, I'll finish it right at the bottom here. But like for instance, who was it? Might have been my Naomi Smalls look. I finished it quite a bit higher to sort of like get that like button nose look. So it's all just dependent on what you're wanting it to look like. But it is very important to finish the end of your nose because then it'll make your nose look very long. I mean, that's what you want, that's totally cool. But the way I do it is I always like to finish it at some point. Okay, so that's there. Now I just take the end of my beauty blender and just very lightly blend that down. Okay, so next we're going to go back in with our foundation brush and our concealer and really try and start this illusion a little bit. So the most important part that I've found with nose contour is getting the sides of your nose as white as possible. Okay? Okay, so if you're wanting a really small, tiny, tiny little nose, bring this white up as far as you possibly can and cover your nostrils all the way down but don't go over the bottom there. Keep that bit dark there. So once that's in, I'm going to really slightly just blend it all out. Okay. So now we're going to go back in with our contour and just go over those lines a little bit. Alright, so I'm going to wash off this little concealer brush here. And we're going to go in with our concealer. And go right down the bridge here. This is a very important step. Okay, so what I like to do is I like to go down, 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 stop, and then do a little dot. Okay. Okay. I think we are done with all the foundation. So we're going to move on to powders. Okay, so if you guys have watched any of my videos, you know that this is like basically all I'll ever be using for the rest of my life to set my foundation. This is the Coty Airspun translucent powder. Now this is not similar to the white powder I use for my brows and all that kind of stuff. This is very different. This is what we'll use to bake. Like I said before, this won't add any extra coverage. This will just set it all and make sure it doesn't move. So, little thing, and just get it everywhere. So, I'm going to take a big brush, and we're just going to brush all that back, get rid of it all. Okay, so this is always the part that it looks absolutely ridiculous, because you just look like one flat colour, and you just look insane. Real quick, I have another question here. This one is from Seth.wine. He asks, what's the difference between powders that you use for baking and powders that you use to set your foundation or use on your eyebrows? I just don't know what powder to use for what. Good question, Seth.wine. Thank you for sending that in that question. So, like I said before, this one is for setting. This is setting powder. This is just translucent powder. It doesn't add any full coverage. It's not any specific color. It's just for setting to make sure your foundation does not move. Coty powder. Couldn't suggest it highly enough. Now, for baking, what you're going to want is some sort of white powder. So like I said, this is the Kryolan blending powder white. This is really, really good. My other suggestion would be the Ben 9 Neutral set. You just need something that is white. For a long time, and actually quite a few people do this, I used baby powder, which worked, but it like didn't really work. You could use it if you like literally were on like the biggest budget ever. You could probably maybe get away with it, but if you really want that really, really baked, fierce look, you need something like this. So that's the difference. One will add no coverage, and this is just translucent and won't add an extra color. This is actually white, and it will leave a mark on your face. So that's what you want. Okay, so before we move on to bronzer, just got another question here. This one's from nyc.rc. He asked, what brushes would you recommend? Now, you caught me on a good day, boy. I recently got all these brushes. They're really, really good. I got these from Dresslink. So cheap, like almost too cheap. For like 10 brushes, I think it was like $4. And usually when you buy really cheap brushes, and I've done it before, they're really, really coarse, and they sort of just like rip up your makeup, and it just looks terrible. These are really, really soft, and they're just really good. There's heaps of like blending brushes. There's sort of like angled brushes. A few that you use for contour and a few you use for foundation. Honestly, if you're in a really, really tight budget and you can't afford a whole lot more, I could recommend these. Very good. Very cheap. Probably shouldn't be buying such cheap, crappy shit. Probably just made in China, and probably not all that great for the environment. But if you're on a budget, this. I'll put a link down below to like these exact ones that I bought. So those are the brushes I use. And in terms of all the other ones that I use, none of them are that great. They're all just very, very cheap. but they do the job. So that's that. So now we are going to move on to contour. So I'm going to take, I think this is like a sort of like a stippling foundation brush, but it works really well for contour because it's very like dense. So this. Now we're going to just contour. So I take on my brush, like usual, and I just sort of like go around in circles. Okay, and put a lot on. So what I like to do is I like to just keep the same brush just for my nose contour no matter what. Don't use it for anything else, because if you go in with like a brush that you've used for a bit of eyeshadow and it's got a bit of blue eyeshadow on it and it's all over your nose, you can't come back from that. You really can't. You're stuffed. So this is my angled brush for my nose contour, and this is all I use for my nose contour. So I go in with my same that I was using and just like so lightly just like run this down the sides here and just sort of try and blend out that line a little bit better. Okay, so that's it for the nose. I like to put quite a bit down the bottom here because it just gives the illusion that your nose is up and it's really tight and it's just really small. You just want to make sure your nose looks, you don't want to make sure, you just want to kind of give a bit of an illusion. Okay, so next is we're going to bake. So I'm going with my Kryolan white setting powder and my same sponge, and we're just going to put these on all the high points. And bring that baking right up to the side of your nose there. Okay. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to set that for basically as long as possible. I like to do it for maybe like 5-10 minutes, just to make sure that it really is solid. So while I'm waiting for this to set, I'm going to answer just a few questions that aren't really makeup related, just sort of like more general questions that you guys commented. So the first one is from Cooper.Bannon. He asked, how many hours does it take to do a look? Like approximately, on average, maybe 2.5, 3.5 hours. I think my longest one was like 4.5 hours. I think that was my kimchi one. Took me a very long time, but it was worth it. This one is from Helen Shab. Sorry if I'm not pronouncing that right. Basic makeup items you recommend for beginners. Basic makeup items. Kryolan paint stick. Kryolan paint stick, Airspun, and baking powder. That's it. This one is from Jerry Liaison. Where do you get your wigs and how much do you think a decent wig is? Where do I get my wigs? Most of my wigs are like secondhand that I get off like eBay or Gumtree, or I find at the markets, or just I find anywhere. Or I've have quite a few that are really cheap. They're just like cheap sort of ones that I've just gotten from, you know, the variety store or whatever, and I've sort of like cut them and restyled them. And all my other ones, I just recently got one off Wiggers Fashion, which is really good. I would recommend. It was like 90 bucks, including postage. It was like so affordable, so cheap. I think maybe a decent wig would cost upwards of maybe like 200 bucks if you want a really nice lace, and I think a really nice lace and really a lot of hair is really important. You don't want to be looking flat. No ma'am. Next question is from Mackie Buster. They ask, beginner's advice please. My beginner's advice would be to practice. That's all I have to say. This one is from Tom_Iasto. Favorite brands for drag makeup? Kryolan is a big one. Morphe. The shadows are like so good. Ben Nye. That's pretty much it, really. Anything else can be whatever. As long as it's like really good, solid, pigmented stuff, it's good. Sugar Pill's another really good one. Another one from Tom Miasto, favorite look you have ever done? Ooh, tough question. It'd have to be either kimchi or probably the extreme plastic surgery one. Those two are probably my top 2 favorites. I loved those ones. Another one from Tom Miasto. Hi, girl. So many questions. Thank you. All-time favorite queen. I don't think anyone can answer that. Like, I genuinely have never met anyone who can honestly answer that for real. I'm sorry, I can't answer it. I really can't. There's so many. So the next question is from oh god, Xitchel, Xitchel, L. Sorry, I don't know how to pronounce your name. I'm so sorry. How did you learn to do drag makeup, from a queen or another source? Well, I learned how to do drag makeup from, well, I don't really know. I learned how to do drag makeup from watching Drag Race and YouTube tutorials and just like looking at photos and that kind of stuff. But basically, before all of this, I spent years and years drawing. So I put in all of my time in learning how to draw before I even started makeup. So I learned how to really understand proportions and shading and blending and color and, you know, shadow and all that kind of stuff. And so once I found drag makeup and I wanted to try and do it, I kind of already had that really strong foundation in drawing, so it sort of just came quite naturally because it is very similar. But yeah, basically just kind of seeing what other people did and being like, oh, maybe that'll work, maybe that'll work, maybe that'll work, and then just trying it on myself and seeing what happens and practice. Okay, well, I think we're pretty much done. I think this has been on for quite a while now. So I'm just going to brush all this back. Okay. Yes. Get rid of all this. See, it makes such a difference. It really does. Okay, so that's all the powders, all the foundations, everything's set, everything's baked. You're all pretty much good. The last step I like to take in this sort of section is I like to take my little concealer brush and my white TV paint stick, and I like to just do a tiny bit of a highlight down the bridge of my nose. There you go. So that's pretty much it. That's it for this video. I hope you guys found this helpful. If I didn't answer your question, I'm sorry. Thank you for sending them in. But yeah, this is for that. I hope you guys found this helpful. I hope you learned something. And yeah. So, thank you guys. I'll see you tomorrow for the eyes and eyebrows. And yeah. So, thank you guys. Bye!